1 Samuel chapter 16 verses 1b, 6-7 and 10-13a. David is anointed as king of Israel. The Lord said to Samuel, "Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem, for I have chosen my king from among his sons." As Jesse and his sons came to sacrifice, Samuel looked at Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed is here before him." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not judge from his appearance or from his lofty stature, because I have rejected him. Not as man sees does God see, because man sees the appearance, but the Lord looks into the heart." In the same way Jesse presented 7 sons before Samuel, but Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen any one of these." Then Samuel asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons you have?" Jesse replied, "There is still the youngest, who is tending the sheep." Samuel said to Jesse, "Send for him. We will not begin the sacrificial banquet until he arrives here." Jesse sent and had the young man brought to them. He was ruddy, a youth handsome to behold and making a splendid appearance. The Lord said, "There anoint him, for this is the one." Then Samuel, with the horn of oil in hand, anointed David in the presence of his brothers, and from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David. The word of the Lord. As my mother used to say, pride rises before the fall. Saul, Israel's first king, forgot that it was God that gave him his power. Pride, arrogance, and self-importance rose in Saul. David was chosen by God to succeed Saul. David was a nice-looking kid. He was a shepherd, a giant killer, courageous, and was in a human sense a predecessor of Jesus. Like most people, he had a dark side. He was also a betrayer, a liar, an adulterer, and a murderer. It's nice that the Bible doesn't hide David's bad side. Why? So we can learn from his faults and failures. In Acts chapter 13 verse 22, God commends him by saying, "I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart." You might wonder why David was anointed in secret and long before Saul's death. It was because God was using Saul as David's show and tell of kingship. Saul was not the most excellent example of a king, but even his failures provided David with examples of what not to do. David was not related to Israel's first king, Saul, and therefore not in any line of succession. Saul's choice as successor was his son Jonathan. Both Saul and Jonathan were killed in battle, which cleared the way for God's choice, David, to take the throne. As long as Saul was alive, David remained loyal to him and never sought to kill him, even though he had a few opportunities to do so. When Saul and Jonathan were killed in battle, David was not only God's selection to succeed Saul, but the people in the street also saw David as the best qualified choice to replace Saul. With all of David's faults, he never lost sight of his faith in God. He was a sinner, but he was quick to seek to confess and repent. Saul had taken God's forgiveness lightly. David never did that. David willingly suffered the consequences of his sin. His children certainly were difficult to raise, and the family had many struggles. He did the crime and was willing to do the time. God's forgiving arms are always outstretched and are waiting for us to accept His forgiving grace. Every outcome of every challenge should reveal how God supplies the grace to make it through what was seemingly impossible. Father Leo Paddling Ugh.